call upon Dr. Raghuram Krishnan Raju to speak upon role of laparoscopy in Mullerian anomalies. He graduated MS from Ashram Medical College in the year 2013, underwent endoscopic training course in Germany and World Laparoscopic Hospital in Delhi. He has given a number of paper presentations at AICOJ and state conference.
Very good morning to one and everyone, to my respected teachers, professors, friends and colleagues. Today I am going to talk about the role of laparoscopy in Mullerian anomalies. What I am overlaying today is how differently we see uterine anomalies in endoscopy and when should we treat and what are the hurdles we face during endoscopy. True incidence is difficult to interpret because each one has their own criteria. There are a lot of irregularities in the incidence and prevalence rate. Non-standardization of the classification system, non-uniform diagnostic modalities, different study population, whereas an infertility clinic has a different study population from that of a OBGY hospital, and inconsistent interpretation and subjectivity. What I may call as a bicornate uterus, somebody else can call it as a septate uterus. The true incidence in general population is 3 to 5%, and fertile group is 4.3%, and it really goes high up in recurrent abortus. And infertile group it's around 7.3%. This is according to the AFS classification. The whole of this talk is going to be based upon the ASFS classification. The most common is the septate bicornate, then comes the unicornate and the didelphus. Clinical significance and symptomology. Most of them are asymptomatic till puberty, and some present with complaints of amenorrhea, cryptomenorrhea, outflow obstruction, and some come with the fertility issues, difficulty in conceiving, and some we can find the uterine anomalies during concurrent treatments during tubectomy or hysterectomy, where you can find a didelphus or a bicornate uterus. Diagnosis. HSG is used primarily as a screening, but the sensitivity is around 75%. Then comes to ultrasound, which has the same sensitivity of 75%. HSG and ultrasound can be both used as a screening tools, primary screening tools. Next comes the 3D, which permits accurate diagnosis. MRI, histrolab, when combined, are gold standard, but MRI is of limited use, not routinely done nowadays because of histrolab and 3D. The one on the left side you can see is a unicornate uterus. What we miss here is when there is a non-communicating rudimentary horn, it doesn't show up on HSG. On the right side is a normal uterus. Somebody may interpret as a unicornate uterus. There are a lot of classification coming and around. The whole of this talk is going to be around AFS classification, and there are small pitfalls and there in each classification. These are on the left side you can see a vacuum classification, which is not used nowadays. Recently an EAC classification has come around, but it's very complex. Coming to then ESHRE classification, one study was recently published in Human Reproduction 2015. What it says, it's comparison between the AFS classification and the ESHRE classification. What's a normal uterus in an AFS classification? The ESHRE classification diagnosis has a septate uterus. Management. When to treat. A mere presence of an anomaly does not warrant its treatment. When a young couple comes to your OP with a septate or a bicornate uterus, let her conceive normally and deliver normally. The septate or the bicornate uterus doesn't going to harm her. When she has menstrual, sexual and fertility problems, then you have to intervene. The one on the lower side is a normal hysteroscopy to a vaginoscopy approach. It helps you with any vaginal septum if you miss during any speculum examination. You can see this is the cervix, beautifully opens up With the liquid media we use mostly is 1.5% glycine. You go into the endocervix, and these are the columnar epithelium you can see. Next is you go straight up into the cavity. And see the fundus, fundal counter whether any septum is present, and then you rotate the light cable to 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position to see the both ostia, whether are deeply seated or normally. This is normal hysteroscopy. And while withdrawing the scope, you see whether there are any polyps or any other thing. Slowly withdraw the scope. Next is a normal laparoscopic picture of a uterus, normal convex shaped fundus, and tubes, adnexa you can see, and even the lower uterine segment you can see there. Next, coming to the septate uterus, there is incomplete resorption of the midline septum, and the incidence is around 35%. It can be complete or incomplete. Complete is up to the internal loss. It's diagnosed by both hystero and laparoscopy and 3D. Studies have shown that the endometrium on the septum is abnormal. It has been biopsied, and it shows that it's avascular, low on glands, and low on ciliated epithelium. Septoplasty, to do or not to do. It's mostly reserved for recurrent miscarriages and preterm labor patients. Studies have shown that they have a better outcome after septoplasty. This is a laparoscopy image of a septate uterus. Unless you do both hystero and lap combined, you cannot make it whether it's a septate or a bicornate uterus. HSG has its own pitfalls. You cannot diagnose between a septate and a bicornate uterus. This is a septum, thick septum. You can use both monopolar or scissors to cut it. And this is a hysteroscopy image of midline septum present. Preoperative 3D helps whether the thickness and the length of the septum and a better resection of the septum. And finally, whether decision to prefer surgical correction of the septum should be based on the reproductive outcome rather than the presence of the septum alone. Here you can see the right side cavity and the ostia, and if you rotate the scope and go inside, you can see the left side. This is a monopolar cutting with the midline septum. Some people use scissors and some people use monopolar. They are data saying that you damage more of the myometrium if you use a monopolar, and it's still controversial. Next, this is a video with scissors. If it's a thick and a broad septum, it does not work with scissors. Then you have to use a monopolar. You cut the septum until you see the both ostia in single plane when you withdraw the scope. If any doubt is there, you have to check with the laparoscopy whether it's a bicornate or a septate uterus. Next comes the bicornate uterus. There is incomplete fusion at the level of the uterine fundus. Incidence is 26%. It can be complete or partial. Diagnosed by 3D, both hystero and laparoscopy combined. The lower uterus and the cervix are fused completely. The two separate but communicating endometrial cavity is present, and the intercorneal diameter is more than 105 degrees. Metroplasty, it's only reserved in recurrent abortus, and it can be done by both laparoscopically and openly, and the results are fairly good. And in one study done, the term pregnancy rate goes up to 60% after metroplasty, and it's only indicated when other causes have been ruled out. This is a HSG image of bicornate uterus, but you cannot diagnose by only HSG alone. Next, coming to the laparoscopy, I have this video in one more slide to show you that. You have varied presentation, not a classical textbook presentation in laparoscopy. This is one on the top hand side, you can see a bicornate uterus. On the lower one, you can see the both horns apart, and one with on the right hand corner side, you see a rectovesical ligament, and no need of any intervention. Most of these people do well, and when you plan an IVF, choose the best horn for embryo transfer. Most of you think this is as a bicornate uterus, but it's normal uterus with a right lateral myoma. And coming to one more video. This patient came with she has 2 live pregnancies and both are active and healthy. She came with retained products of conception. You can see the retained products of conception here in the left cornu. And when we rotate the scope and go into the other cavity is empty. And if you done a blind procedure like a DNC, and you can nearly miss this finding, and she comes again to your clinic with bleeding. This is the classical bicornate uterus. Once you see the pictures everywhere. This is another form of bicornate with bicorless, with a single cervix. Both tubes are patent, and she's doing well. She went to term pregnancy. Arcuate. It's the one which is most overclassified and overdiagnosed. There is nearly complete resorption of the uterovaginal septum, but a small indentation at the fundus of less than 1 centimeter is present. Most of these patients do well. They are clinically benign. Resection is still controversial in these patients. It's indicated only in poor performers. On a HSG, you can see a fundal indentation of 1 centimeter and around. Studies regarding arcuate uterus are limited and widely displayed. And in ultrasound, you can pre-oply assess whether to cut the septum at the fundus or not, where the height to length ratio should be less than 10 centimeters, where the reproductive outcome is good. Next, coming to the unicornate uterus, there is failure of development of one horn where another develops normally. It can be communicating rudimentary horn with endometrium, non-communicating. HSG is useful in diagnosing the defect, but it cannot diagnose the non-communicating horn. It is associated with renal anomalies in 44% of cases, and they are poor reproductive outcome. Twin pregnancy is a complete no in this one, and we can't push the pregnancy more weeks in a unicornate uterus, and cervical encerclage is advised. Laparoscopy is reserved only in cases where there is a rudimentary non-communicating horn or a communicating horn. Before planned pregnancy, resection should be done so that ectopic or other difficulties are not encountered. This is a hysteroscopic view of unicornate uterus with a single septum and narrow tubular cavities present. This is a hysteroscopy image of the unicornate uterus, where you have difficulty in seeing the ostia sometimes. You slowly withdraw it. This is a unicornate uterus without any rudimentary horn. The right adnexia are buried with additions, and the left adnexia are normal. Both the ovaries are normal, and the corneal ends are not developed so well. On your right hand side, you can see a hysteroscopic of the unicornate uterus. where you see the tubal ostia. While we are slowly withdrawing, you can see the cavity also. Next is a unicornate uterus with a rudimentary horn. Both the ovaries are well developed, and the corneal ends of the tubes are not so well developed. Some advise resection of the rudimentary horn if it's there. Hysteroscopic communication of non-rudimentary horn is done nowadays. Next comes the diadelphous uterus or the double uterus. There is failure of fusion of the two Mullerian ducts at all the levels. People present with two uterine colon, two cervix, two vagina, and this can vary from person to person. Hysteroscopy is not diagnostic or accurate. These people present with 20% of renal anomalies, and the pregnancy outcome is good. You don't have to do anything for these people. Simultaneous pregnancy can occur in both the horns. Most of the patients are asymptomatic. You find them during some tubectomy procedure or during a hysterectomy. Strassman's metroplasty is selected in very few cases. This is one case where she again came with retained products of conception. She has two live births. You can see a rectovesical segment between them. Doing a blind DNC in one horn, you can really miss up the conceptions. You can't curate them completely. Both the head necks are normal, both the tubes are normal. She presented with a single cervix. T-shaped or DES associated anomalies. These people usually have a broad fundus, sometimes with small uterine cavities. They present with the various other shapes also. Diagnosed by both hysto and laparoscopy. In hysteroscopy, you have difficulty in seeing both the ostia because of the shouldering of the lateral walls. Lateral metroplasty is still controversial. Data is very limited. There's no evidence-based studies. You can do lateral metroplasty with a unipolar so as to enlarge the cavity, which makes the IVF people happier. Mullerian hypoplasia. Complete absence or a hypoplasia of the uterus. We have experience of 5 to 6 cases of open vaginoplasty we have done. We have no experience with laparoscopy. Laparoscopy is not routinely done to diagnose it unless there is an XY gonad, which is a pre-malignant, where we have to remove it. Mostly diagnosed at puberty. MRI is mostly accurate in this one. And coming to the small uterine volumes, where the uterine volume is more or less than or more than 25 ml. Previously, we used to do hysteroscopic incision on the lateral walls and the fundus to make the cavity larger, but it's right now not advised if the cavity is more than 25 ml. Conclusions. Mullerian anomalies form a small segment of the reproductive tract anomalies. Complete diagnosis is essential before you go to the treatment, and the treatment is varied. Treatment is anatomy, symptom based for better outputs and results. Results are variable depending on the uterine anomaly. Future. Regenerative medicine has come into this thing where they are implanting stem cells into the uterus for growth, but it's too early to comment on that one. This is an EndoC, which is a new product. I think this revolutionizes office hysteroscopy and ultrasound. Thank you.